Coming up on TekThing is the OnePlus 3, the best deal ever on a flagship Android phone. Fix Windows 7 updates, change Windows passwords fast, run Android on Chrome OS, and let's talk about upgrading the processor in your laptop. It's all coming up on TekThing. If you get something useful out of this episode of TekThing, please consider contributing to the show at patreon.com/TekThing. We're brought to you by viewers just like you. Thanks.
I'm Shannon Morse.
And I'm Patrick Norton.
And this is TekThing, where we make something useful in every single show.
And shiny.
And shiny.
And shiny. Well, it's shiny. You've been going all out with the new OnePlus 3 for the past few days.
Yes, this thing is so much fun.
And you didn't have to go on a waiting list.
No, I didn't. Can you believe that? So OnePlus 3, you may know them from their original phones, the OnePlus and the OnePlus 2. Both of those required that you be on a wait list. You had to get an invite to be able to receive the actual phone. So this time with the OnePlus 3, you don't have to get an invite, and you can actually purchase it online for $399. So it's $400.
It sounds like a weird price, right? Because we've seen bargain Android phones at $200. The flagship stuff is usually like $600 plus.
And OnePlus has always been touted as like the flagship killer, as they've been going along with for a long time. So $400 is way cheaper than a lot of the flagships.
Does it actually have flagship specs?
I would say yes, it does. Pros and cons.
Okay.
So in some ways it does, in other ways maybe it doesn't. So this time this OnePlus 3 is available in graphite and gold, and it comes with this fancy little dash charge, and they are really advertising this dash charge. Turns out it can charge your phone up to 65% in 30 minutes. So they say 63. I recorded it and I did a test and it got to 65% in 30 minutes. Now that's with their dash charger, of course.
So that's basically the Qualcomm stuff we've been seeing on a lot of different. Snapdragon 820 processor.
Snapdragon 820 processor. It's very quick, very fast paced, and that is the same one that's coming with a lot of the different phones nowadays. And an Adreno 530 GPU. It also has 64 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM. Now the thing with that though is even though you get more gigs of RAM, the only other 6 gig I think is a ZTE phone. Those 64 gigs of storage is all you have. That's your only choice, and there is no SD card placement. There's no place to add additional storage. So if you need more than 64 gigs, you're kind of screwed.
You're SOL.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a highly technical term.
And then of course there's 4G LTE, there's Wi-Fi, ABG, and an AC. They also have Bluetooth 4.2, and they brought back NFC. Super excited about that because the OnePlus 2 got on my nerves because they did not have NFC, and it drove me nuts. I use NFC all the time. I know you don't.
I mean, I've seen you walk up to stuff like I'm testing, and you'll have your Android phone and you'd be like, bink,
yep,
bink. No, it's not NFC, and then you'll say something.
I'm like, this is not worth it. Doesn't have NFC. So, and we have a Windows computer in the studio.
A loud Windows computer.
A loud Windows computer. It also has a fingerprint sensor on the front. It's very quick. It's very responsive. There it goes. As I say, it's responsive. Except for when demoing it. Yeah, and there are duo nano SIM card slots. So no SD card slot, but you have dual nano SIMs.
So it's a very international phone.
It's very international, yeah. But I kind of wish they would have put the SIM or the SD card slot in there as opposed to dual SIMs, because I don't find a lot of people in the US use that feature. Most people just have one SIM card.
Maybe that'll be in the OnePlus.
It could be good for travelers.
3.5.
OnePlus 3.5, yes. Moving on to the camera, this is one of the fun parts. So it's an f2.0 aperture, 16 megapixel camera on the back, and that has optical image stabilization as well as electronic image stabilization.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's 4K video at 30 FPS, so it can film 4K video, and it includes RAW support. They have manual controls, which are really cool. So that enables you to do things like change the ISO, and you can change the aperture to whatever you prefer. So lots and lots of cool manual controls. Of course, it's nothing like working with an actual camera, but it does pretty good. Very excellent color quality. In fact, I have a few example pictures when comparing this to my 6P on my computer. So this is with the OnePlus. Very accurate colors, and the aperture did a really good job of focusing on this Frappuccino cup as opposed to the one in the background. Compared to the 6P, not as accurate, but very good with bringing out the color, the actual color of the background. So this one was a little blown out. Moving on with this, accurate colors again with the OnePlus, and the 6P brought out a lot of the brightness, and that was not HDR. This is just normal, regular picture. This is the front camera. So it is a selfie cam. It's f2.0 8 megapixel front camera. It's very crisp, very accurate. It includes a beauty filter, although I did not have to use it. So, just saying.
Well, the beauty filters are just kind of like,
it's just like it washes you out.
Yeah.
It's like going to one of those photography centers in the mall back in the 90s and getting your pictures taken and they just like spray paint you. Yeah. So that's a beauty filter. Right. I also did some pictures outside too, and on my computer you can see those. It did a pretty good job when I was just focusing on the sky, and if I did want to do an HDR picture, it did a great job of bringing out the actual colors of this map. So it didn't make the blues too bright, didn't make the browns too brown or anything like that. Did a good job of doing that. But with the sky, it was slightly blown out. When I compare that to a picture on my 6P, the 6P did a better job of bringing out the blues in the sky, but it also made this map pop a lot. So those colors are not as accurate. And then you have, just taking pictures of outdoor floral and things like that. The OnePlus did a great job of, bringing out the shadows and everything in this plant. And it was very, very comparable to the 6P in this case with really nice color qualities. So generally, very happy with the OnePlus 3's camera on both sides. I thought it did a great job, especially with 16 megapixels f2.0. So it's definitely on par with some of the other ones. But if I was comparing this with a S7, for example, which Darren has an S7, S7 by far shoots this out of the ballpark.
Well, it also costs how much more?
It costs twice as much.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you have to consider, do you want a better camera? Then you'd probably want to get a Galaxy phone.
You spent a lot of time with the 6P Quad HD screen. This is a 5.5-inch 1080p or 1920 by 1080
Yeah, it's
camera.
1920 by 1080, 401 pixels per inch. So it's down from what I'm used to with the 6P, but since it's a smaller screen, I don't really notice the difference.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, I don't notice the difference a lot. It's a 1080p, it's AMOLED screen, so it does a very, very good job of, bringing out the actual colors, and you can't see the pixels on it because it is a smaller screen. So I think it was great.
401 pixels per inch is pretty dense.
It's very dense, yeah. And with that smaller compact screen, and since it isn't Quad HD, you also get longer battery life. There's a 3,000 milliampere hour battery in there. It lasted for freaking ever. I'm not gonna lie, I had to play games, use heavy usage for over 8 hours. I was seriously sitting there getting bored playing my game on it for so long because it didn't die. So it lasted a long time. And that was with heavy usage. Of course, if you're using it light, you can generally go a full 24 hours with this phone too, which is great. Normally on my 6P, I can get 7 hours or so on a heavy usage day, and that's like major Snapchatting and video games on there and playing YouTube shows all day. Normally I can get a full 16-hour day out of my 6P without it dying if I'm playing with it normally, just to kind of give you an idea of the range of time that you can get out of a phone. Of course, that all depends on how often you use your phone. And then there was Oxygen OS, which is OnePlus 3 or OnePlus's version of Android's operating system.
This is the part where I start to panic because going between a Nexus with a pure Android experience or a Motorola with a pure Android experience to, for example, a Samsung, I'm just like, Samsung, we got to talk. You got to quit it.
Yes, I know. Gosh, Samsung. What's wrong with you people? So, oh my gosh, customizations, Batman. Seriously, you can change everything on here. If I go into the settings, I can just list them off for you, okay? Because it's just crazy. Okay, customizations. You can change the buttons. You can change the gestures. You can change your customizations. You can change the color scheme to a dark mode. There's also a night mode, which I thoroughly enjoyed because it made it more of a yellow instead of a blue, which is great if you're trying to go to bed. LED notifications, you can change those. You can change your status bar. You can change the little buttons down here, which are capacitive touch buttons. You can change the color.
So there's a metric ton of options.
There are.
But was it fairly pure in terms of
It
Android
is very pure. So surprisingly, they don't put a lot of bloatware on here. They just focused on giving you additional customizations, but still keeping it very pure to the vanilla Android feel that I've gotten used to with the Nexus line from Google. Really, really liked the customizations that they included, and I would actually prefer those in vanilla Android, which I don't normally say. So That's saying something. They also include this thing called Shelf, which is basically just like Google's Now, which is when you swipe to the side, you receive a bunch of information about your location. So this one includes, you got your weather details. You can also add a notepad and you can make notes in there. So it's basically just a little thing that you swipe over to access your most common needs.
I'm sensing a strong thumbs up for this phone.
Yeah, surprisingly, I'm giving it a strong thumbs up. I was a little iffy on it because I was like, OnePlus. I hate the invite system, and I just I had kind of a bias against the invite system. I did not like it at all.
Well, it's irritating.
It is irritating. I understand why they did it because it helped with manufacturing. They were only building as many as they needed for those first two. I'm really glad they got rid of that, and they were really focusing on the quality of the phone. And like even with this nice aluminum, like it's just one cut of aluminum. It feels really good in your hands. It does feel like a quality phone, and you're getting that for $400. So it's definitely on par with the other ones, and I would say it's one of the best ones for that price. Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we wait to see what the Moto Z gets priced at. And feels like in real life.
I can't wait to check out that one too.
That one's going to be fun. There's no headphone jack on it. Is there a headphone jack on this?
Yes, there's a headphone jack on it right next to the USB-C. USB-C, yay. Let me know what you guys think. Of course, you can always email us over at ask@tekthing.com. I got it right this time.
We want to thank everybody that contributes to the show via patreon.com/TekThing. You make it possible for Shannon and I to bring you the show week after week. All patrons get access to our patron-only builds, and contributing at higher levels gets your name on the website, credits, even monthly hangouts with Shannon and I. Can't donate? No worries. Keep sending us your questions, your tips, your thoughts, and ideas. And thank you so much for supporting TekThing. Did you ever lose the password on a Windows machine?
Meow.
Yes, Neko Kitty.
Yes, I have. In fact, I did a segment about like losing my password and then using this like super janky rainbow table thing 8 years ago on Hack 5 on like an XP computer.
If you have access to somebody's machine and you can like you can get sort of the file that the password's stored in and use Loftcrack to break it open, but let's not be that complicated.
Maybe that was it.
I have my moments. So if you're on Windows 10, right, or you sign in, well, if you're at work, right, you're basically, and you sign into a domain, you're gonna have to have your sysadmin reset your password.
Yeah.
If you are doing the Microsoft login, like on Windows 10, you can basically be like, you can go online and create a new password.
Oh yeah.
If you are, not using, if you're basically like on Windows 7 or Windows 8, or if you're the person on Windows 10 that does not use the sort of synchronized login with Microsoft, you can actually reset your forgotten Windows password the easy way, which basically involves a startup disk and getting into the command line and rebooting and hitting Shift 5 times and then typing in more command lines. So it's not.
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. If you
lazy.
Don't have a Windows boot disk, you can like create a special kind of Windows install disk. If you don't have a Windows install disk, you can create a boot disk to do that. I did not have time to deal with that.
It's like, what do you do if you're lazy?
Well, I had a Windows 7 machine that the password was lost for, and I'm like, okay, I will go to Daossoft and I will try the Windows Password Rescuer. It is $18.
Oh, that's not bad.
It's not bad. Especially in terms of
it's a few Starbucks.
Well,
so I compare everything.
It's like four macchiatos if you include not macchiatos, frappuccinos. She's got a frappuccino habit. In any case, you download it, you install it on a thumb drive or burn it to a CD. Then you boot off the thumb drive, you select a user. So, you basically get all the users that are listed on there. You can add a new user, which is kind of creepy, or you can just select a user, hit the reset password button. It'll be like, do you want to set this user password blank? And if you hit yes, it'll ask you to pull a USB drive or the CD-ROM drive or the CD drive out of the CD out of the ROM. CD out of the It's been so CD long. Drive? I think it's been like 2 years since I've booted a machine with a CD. In any case, it'll ask you to hit yes to restart.
Okay.
And when your machine reboots, there's no password. It's taken away the password.
Oh, how insecure.
Passwordless, right. I did that and I'm like, that was great. That was so easy. Wow, I really need to lock down my BIOS.
Yeah.
Which is something I haven't thought about in a long time. And I'm probably not going to lock down my BIOS at my house, at least not until the boys get older. But it is something to think about. It was literally, so if you get fancy and hackery and you get your Loftcrack on, right, you can figure out somebody's password. and it's very subtle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is.
Nobody's gonna know, unless you do something stupid, people aren't gonna know.
Because
you
you're
have their
brute
password.
forcing it. You're not actually changing the password. So
Yeah.
nobody's going to know the better.
Yeah, so in this case, with Daossoft Windows Password Rescuer, you are making the password go away and then putting a new one on. Do not use this for April Fools, and if you do, do not have somebody go homicidal and headed to Richmond to come beat us with sticks. Because it literally took about 4 minutes to do this.
Wow.
Worked on the older systems I tried. I tried it on a Core i7 Skylake machine, and the drive wouldn't boot because it said the motherboard BIOS was not ACPI compliant.
Oh,
So I tried turning off ACPI. I tried it. Actually, I went to try to update the BIOS, and when I got to the manufacturer's website, all the drivers and BIOS updates were missing in action. So I switched to another Z170 box with an Asus ROG Maximus 8 Impact motherboard, which I assure you has the latest drivers and BIOS updates, and the same ACPI crash happened.
Oh no.
So Daossoft Windows Password Rescuer definitely works on older systems, and it might need an update for the latest Z170 powered gear, at least in my experience. But oh my goodness, it was so easy. It was terrifyingly easy.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So,
And if you're curious about how to update the password in your BIOS, you simply boot into your BIOS. And generally there is a setting in there to secure it with a password. But keep in mind, if you do that, you better remember that password because it's on your BIOS and you have to have it every single time you boot up that computer.
Which can be incredibly irritating. So I now have a password. So I enter my password. I create a new password for this system. I'm access to the system. I go to update, and it's scanning for updates for like an hour.
Oh no.
I'm like, WTF. Which is another highly technical term. So InfoWorld has a wonderful article. Microsoft releases KB 316, 1647, 316, 1608 to fix slow Windows 7 update scans. So it turns out that Microsoft accidentally borked the Windows 7 updates and made them incredibly slow, like sitting for hours scanning but not finding anything. So
seriously?
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about my Windows 10 joke in a second, but it was pretty crazy, right? So thanks to InfoWorld, they've been tracking this for months. This has been bouncing around in forums and stuff. They isolated the files. So what you need to do to fix that, if you're running Windows 7, if you are running Windows 7, go to support.microsoft.com, link in the show notes. June 2016 update rollup for Windows 7, Service Pack 1 and Windows Server 2008 R2 SP1.
Oh.
If you do not install these, you will probably never update your system again. So you have to manually download this. You go down to the download center. And
thanks for that, because I don't think I've received an update for a long time on my Windows 7
Well,
computer.
I manually downloaded and installed this update, and then I rebooted my system, and I had 5 more critical and optional updates to install.
Including Windows 10?
Well, yeah, that whole upgrade to Windows 10 icon was just sitting there in the toolbar the whole time. I don't have problems with this. I like Windows 7. So I'm sure it wasn't something that Microsoft did to motivate us all to move that last Windows 7 machine to Windows 10.
Sure.
Mistakes happen.
Yeah. Well, I want to know what operating systems you guys are running. If you're running a Mac OS, for example, if you're running Linux like me, or Windows 7, 8, or 10. I'm kind of curious. What segments do you want to see to do on different operating systems? You can always email us, ask@tekthing.com, and let us know in the details.
I think a new Mac OS system is in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
We got a tweet from @Jose Bonilla Jr., who tweets, @snubs@tekthing, can you cover some Android on Chrome OS? I would say yes, we can, except we can't really yet. Let me explain. Back in May, Google announced that they would be bringing the Play Store to Chromebooks. And I got super excited because that's going to be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
But then they also humble bragged that it's the #2 most popular PC operating system in the US. Okay, well, that's outright bragging, and I don't want to tick off my macOS people watching, but my thought is that there is a lot more Chromebooks sold than most of us realize.
Chromeback. That's what happened when Nickelback broke up. It's a Nickelback cover band.
That was a horrible joke.
That's a horrible thought. So yeah, if you go to the Chrome blog, Google Play Store coming to a Chromebook near you, they're bringing all the Android apps to the Chrome OS, right?
Awesome.
This is really exciting. So the same apps that run on phones and tablets can now run on Chromebooks without compromising their speed, simplicity, or security. I'm quoting here. And devs won't have to do a thing to make them work, says the Goog. They're like,
The Goog.
The Goog says all the Android apps will be running on the Chromebooks.
Okay. Cool.
Not all Chromebooks. So if you go to the Chromium project webpage, there's a list of Chromebooks, Chromeboxes, and Chrome bases that will be able to install Android apps. Touchscreen devices will obviously probably have a better time with a lot of Android apps. The problem is like, oh, there's our Lenovo 100S Chromebook that is serving so sturdily in testing. The problem is we don't have an Asus Chromebook Flip, which right now is the only device that will actually run, well, the Asus Chromebook Flip with the M53 dev channel version of the operating system is the only Chromebook that will run Android apps. The Acer Chromebook R11 and the Google Chromebook Pixel come next because they're basically rolling this out. Everybody else, like our Lenovo 100S, will get their Android apps later in 2016 or 2017.
2017?
Well, maybe they'll move fast.
So I'm assuming that they're testing it on all the available Chromebooks to make sure that it's like legit working before they put it out there.
Yeah, judging from this list, this is a pretty extensive list of Chromebooks. It's not all the Chromebooks.
So we have to be patient.
Whether we like it or not. But I mean, it's a pretty extensive list of Chromebooks.
Are we going to get one?
We have one.
Well, I mean, are we going to get the Chrome OS? Are we going to like show it off on the show?
As soon as we can get a Chrome OS device that'll run Android apps, we will show them off on the show.
Yay!
It should be pretty cool.
I'm very excited about that.
I'm very curious to see how a lot of the Android apps function on a device without a touchscreen.
Yeah.
That's either going to be okay or miserable.
Yeah.
You know, I'm also curious if that gets more Android developers making Chrome OS apps, but there's no point at that point. Why would you do that if your Android app will run on Chrome OS?
It sounds hacky, and it's going to be exciting because I think that'll give me a lot of reasons to have cheap laptops that I can use for things like putting one behind here to run the TV.
That's why they got rid of the Nexus tablets. They're going to do Chrome tablets.
Ooh.
No, not going to happen.
We'll find out. Tweet us what you guys think at TekThing, at Patrick Norton, and at Snubs. We got an email back from Andrew, who had the battery failure. He emailed with an update. He says, "Hi TekThing, I just wanted to give you an update on my problem with my laptop, which was a Dell Inspiron 3521, and the boot up message stating that my battery had experienced a permanent failure. After watching your show, I went to the Dell website, then downloaded and installed the BIOS update. Unfortunately, the battery has in fact died and needs replacing. I was wondering if I could upgrade the 1.9 gigahertz Core i3 in my laptop with an i5 or an i7. Thank you for answering my question. Always enjoy watching TekThing." From Andrew. Yay! Well,
Yay.
I'm sorry that your battery was actually dead, but at least you didn't buy an extra battery that you didn't need in the first place, and you were able to upgrade your BIOS. So yay! So as far as the chip goes, it is kind of doubtful that you can upgrade it, but if you look in your control panel, the settings, you can find out exactly which processor that you have. So luckily that can be very useful information, and you can find information about that over at arc.intel.com too.
If you've never been to arc.intel.com, it basically has all the specs for all the processors.
It's really nice.
You know, just do a search for your processor name, arc.intel.com, and you'll get something like this: Intel Core i3 4030U processor, 3 megabytes of cache, 1.9 gigahertz, which may or may not be your processor, but the thing you care about is scrolling all the way down to package specifications, right? So this talks about, you know, right here, the sockets supported. And that's where things get interesting. So what you can do is you can look up that package, and in this case, it's a FCBGA, which is a flip chip ball grid array.
Ooh.
Which basically means your CPU is soldered to the motherboard. And if you've never seen, instead of having
laptops.
pins, yeah,
Yay.
well, instead of having pins inside of or underneath your chip, it has little balls of solder, and those get heated up and sucked through the motherboard to install it, right?
Oh, that's cool.
It is really cool. But if you're talking about replacing that, it gets pretty crazy. For example, Olimex BGA chip soldering and replacement tutorial. You'll need a hot air desoldering tool, a soldering iron, tweezers, solder wick, Tachyflux, isopropyl alcohol. This is a big deal. Whoops, a hot air desoldering tool is pretty crazy stuff. So in theory, right, you could, if you're really good and have that hot air rework station or access to one, you could possibly replace it, but A, it's beyond my skill. I'm pretty sure I can find folks at iFixit or NextThing Co. that can do it, but it is not for the faint of heart, and just finding a Core i5 BGA CPU that's compatible with your laptop is an even bigger problem, because you can't just go to, you know, you can't like,
You can't go to the store and buy
Yeah.
one of them because that's not something that they sell to consumers.
Right. You might find one on eBay coming from China or something like that because they don't sell it to consumers. And whether or not, if you can find a Core i5, you need to have a BIOS. Your BIOS has to be compatible with that, which can be problematic. You know, was your laptop offered in Core i5 or Core i7's versions? And again, can you find one for sale? So this is probably not an upgrade path. You know, first thing I do is
It sounds really hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it
sounds complicated and full of potential problems.
Yes, there's
so
lots of failure
I
points.
wouldn't do it. If you do, have fun.
Yeah, I would probably, if you don't have an SSD in your laptop, I would put an SSD in your laptop first. If you don't have 8 gigabytes of memory in your laptop, I would see if you can upgrade your laptop to 8 gigabytes of memory. Those two things will make huge performance improvements on any system, Mac, OS, Linux. You know, just going from a traditional hard drive to an SSD is a huge difference.
Oh yeah,
those
huge
I would do
difference.
first, especially with OS 10. Excuse me, Mac OS. 8 gigabytes of memory is a huge bump up from 4 gigabytes. It helps a lot with Windows 2. Those are the first 2 upgrades I'd do.
Awesome.
But a CPU upgrade on a laptop, generally not going to happen.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Well, I hope that answered your question, Andrew. Of course, if anybody else has questions, you know where to send them. But now we have come to the end of our show. But instead of closing my laptop today, because remember, once in a while you gotta put your phone down, gotta step away from the screen and close your laptop to do something analog. But today we have a video from Ant, who has an analog choice for us. So let's go over to my computer and I'll play this video for you.
Hey, what's up, Patrick? What's up, Snubs?
See if it plays.
Aunt Prue here. Hope y'all are doing well. You always talk about doing something analog. Is this analog enough for you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I quit. I'm going fishing. I'll see you later.
Down here at the river with my son, but I cheated a little bit because I did bring my toy. Shooting a little time lapse. And no, we didn't catch a daggum thing. Y'all doing all right? Peace.
Oh, thank you so much, Ant. That was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was so cute. If you guys are interested, Ant does a lot of photography and videography, and you can find his information over at antpruitt.com. So thank you, Ant, for sending that in. Love seeing what you guys are doing analog-wise. So if you guys have videos or photos, you can always send those to us too. ask@TekThing.com. I think that's it.
That's it. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Shannon Morse.
We'll see you next week on TekThing.
I think the octopus was the hardest. That was worse than the shark.
Did it like
Because
wrap
it was like
around
a
your arm?
sand shark. But it had wrapped around something at the bottom of the ocean. So. You're not kidding me. Yeah.
A friend of mine has a horrible story about like the octopus grabbing his arm as he was trying to get the hook out of it, and then having to like peel the octopus off.
That's so weird and awesome.
Like, at least it wasn't on your face. Like, he was like, yeah, at least it wasn't on my face. It's like, that's just horrible.
Face hugger.
Face hugger. Oh my goodness. Now I want to watch Alien. Oh my goodness.
It's my face hugger noise.
We would like to thank all the non-face huggers who support us because you make the show possible.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next week.